Good afternoon and welcome everybody. I'm Ryan Carlin. I'm the director for the Center of Human Rights and Democracy here at Georgia State University and professor of political science. And I'll be moderating today's session. The Center for Human Rights and Democracy is the main place on campus that spurs research at the intersection of human rights and democracy. And we also support a lot of programming like this that is in line with our mission. So I'm very glad to be here today. This is part of course, as you know, of our Global Career Series. And we do these quite regularly here. And this series features representatives from globally connected organizations to talk to students and recent grads about rewarding opportunities to work in global spaces, either in Atlanta or abroad. We hope you'll feel inspired to pursue global careers, internships, and volunteer opportunities offered by these organizations. This series is organized each semester by the Atlanta Global Studies Center, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, University Career Services, GSU's Global Studies Program, and the Study Abroad programs. To learn more, please visit the websites listed in the chat. Today's session will focus on U.S. foreign affairs abroad. We're delighted to bring you representatives from the U.S. State Department, the Peace Corps, the Pickering and Rangel Fellowship Programs, and USAID. Our panelists are Saúl Hernández, Jackie Valadez, Sterling Tilley Jr., and Penelope Thomas. In a moment, I'm going to ask these panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their organizations. But first, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, this session is being recorded, so we ask you to keep your mics muted to reduce any background noise during the session. After the presentations, there will be a moderated Q&A. We have some questions prepared for these panelists, but we also want to hear from you. Please type your questions in the chat at any time, and I will do my best to integrate them into our conversation. So now let's learn a little bit more about our panelists, and let's start with you, Mr. Hernández.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, and thanks to all of you who are joining us today and my fellow panelists. So as you mentioned, my name is Saúl Hernández, and I am a recruiter for the U.S. Department of State, and I recruit candidates from the states of Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. The Department of State is actually the first agency established by the federal government, and we implement the foreign policy of the President of the United States in collaboration with other federal agencies such as USAID and Peace Corps, and with partners such as Howard University, which helps us with our fellowships. My colleagues and I at the Department of State are involved in foreign affairs efforts around the world, and that might include issuing passports to U.S. citizens and providing information to keep our citizens safe when they travel abroad, to issuing visas to millions of visitors and hundreds of thousands of green cards to permanent residents, to supporting our allies in places such as Ukraine, and working on global issues such as human rights, democracy, and climate change. We offer internships as well as graduate fellowships and job opportunities to work domestically at our headquarters in Washington, D.C. and other cities around the country, and at our embassies and consulates all over the world. We are looking for U.S. citizens from all backgrounds to reflect the America we represent to the world. This is an exciting time to consider a career at the U.S. Department of State, and as we are hiring in high numbers and expanding our student programs. You'll see throughout the presentation, I have a little frame around my screen, so folks who are interested in speaking with me can email me directly at dirsouth@state.gov, or you can visit our careers website, careers.state.gov, which is on the bottom left of my screen, and learn more.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hernández. It's great to have you here. It's great to meet you. Now we'll go to one of my old friends now in this game, Jackie Valadez. I think we've been on about 3 of these together. It's so nice to see you again. Welcome. You're coming from the Peace Corps. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hi, nice to see you again. So my name is Jackie Valadez, and I am a senior recruiter with the Peace Corps. And for anyone who is unfamiliar, the Peace Corps is a federal agency that focuses on world peace and friendship. And the way to achieve world peace and friendship is to support in countries that have specifically requested the US's presence and support within their borders. So Through the Peace Corps, we offer a 2-year opportunity to all U.S. citizens over the age of 18 to join us in a specific job that will center the community and local projects at the community level for 2 years. And these roles will typically align with one's professional skill set and or education background. So we're looking for individuals who are highly motivated, who will have either a 4-year degree or 5 years of professional experience. We are also looking for individuals who are ready to work with others overseas and understand that it will be difficult in many ways, but despite all that, we'll still remain resilient. So joining the Peace Corps for 2 years. After Peace Corps, there are several outlets for your career. The most common one will be a federal career track. So everyone who completes Peace Corps service will obtain a non-competitive eligibility status, meaning it's a sort of preferential hiring status within federal jobs that one can take advantage of. There's also an opportunity to go into grad school through the Peace Corps at a reduced cost. So I highly recommend individuals here who are interested in starting off their career, especially if you're early on or want to dip your toes into what an international career could look like, to consider the Peace Corps. I'm so looking forward to answering everyone's questions and sharing more resources as we go, because we are always taking applications and we're always looking for those motivated candidates to join us.
Thank you, Jackie, very much. I'd like to go now to Mr. Sterling Tilley Jr. from the Pickering and Rangel Fellowships.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Sterling Tilley. I am the director of the Thomas R. Pickering Fellowship, and I am representing actually 3 different fellowships today because Howard University administers several different types of diplomatic fellowships, but the ones that I'm going to talk about in a few seconds are the ones that are more pertinent to you all today. So it's the Thomas R. Pickering Fellowship and the Charles B. Rangel Fellowship. Both of those 2 fellowships are focused or in cooperation with the U.S. Department of State. And for those 2 particular fellowships, we offer up to $106,000 in total for a 2-year graduate degree program. And once you complete that particular program, you are obligated to a 5-year commitment to the Foreign Service at the U.S. Department of State. Each of these 2 programs offer 2 summer 10-week internships. One summer is domestic, and the second summer is usually overseas at an embassy or consulate. And we also, during those summer months, offer mentoring and professional development to help the person better acclimate themselves and get used to how the Department of State operates. And so the eligibility for these particular fellowships are that you be a U.S. citizen, and that you have a cumulative undergraduate degree GPA of 3.2. But once you enter into graduate school, you would have to maintain a 3.2 GPA for every single semester that you're in the grad university that you're going to for grad school. And so the application process for both of those usually opens around the July, early August timeframe. And so be on the lookout for those coming up soon, especially if you are a junior or senior in the university right now. And once those open, then you'll have the opportunity to submit your applications along with your recommendations, and then the decisions, the final decisions, will be made at the end of that calendar year. So usually you submit by the end of September, and then by November, around Thanksgiving or so, you'll know whether or not you are one of the 45 for each of those 2 programs. Now, as it relates to the Donald M. Payne Fellowship, that's another diplomatic fellowship that we have in cooperation with USAID, and that program is very, very similar to the Pickering and the Rangel fellowships, except for there offer is a slightly lower at about $104,000 for the 2-year program. But all the other details as it relates to that particular fellowship are almost identical to the Rango and the Pickering fellowships. I will leave it at that, and then we will allow you guys to ask questions about the actual programs, and then I can tell you a little bit more about the individual functions of those programs. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tilley. Now we'd like to take it, pass the baton to Penelope Thomas, who I got a chance to meet last week, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her career. I was muted when I was telling you were muted.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. So I'm going to start a little bit differently than my colleagues because I have sort of a snake path to how I got to where I got to at USAID. So the first thing that you should know about me is I was a backup singer for Prince. And I did that for about a year. And Prince and I got into an argument because he wanted me to continue to be a backup singer for him. And I used to also sing with Patti LaBelle, Luther Vandross, and a group called The Sounds of Blackness. I left all of that because I wanted to be a Peace Corps volunteer. And because ultimately I wanted to be the first African-American Secretary of State. So those dreams were shattered with Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell, but I did decide that I did go on to the Peace Corps, and it was very rewarding. And then after that, I worked for several non-governmental organizations, and someone at USAID whose grant I was managing said, you know, I think you really have an eye for administrative work and contracting work. You should come work for USAID. So what is USAID, you may ask? We are the agency, we are the world's premier international development agency. And what we do is we provide foreign assistance to those in need. We work in over 100 countries. We promote global health. We catalyze innovation and partnership. And our real mission is to partner to end extreme poverty and promote resilient democratic societies while advancing our security and prosperity. So we have foreign service officers. I'm a foreign service officer. I've been back exactly 8 weeks now. My last tour was in Pakistan. And we do a lot of things that just the humanitarian organizations would do, empowering girls, supporting global stability. And one of the questions that we were asked to talk about is, why do we love what we do? I like being a foreign service officer because it gives me a chance to really help people in different countries. And again, my traditional path to USAID was not so traditional because my father was a diplomat for the United Nations. And my first job, ironically, was working at USAID as a summer intern at the age of 17. And I remember saying USAID is never going to have any type of impact in my life at all. And here I sit before you, a USAID employee. But we also, so we have foreign service officers, and basically we address the global challenges on the front lines of development in our overseas offices, and we work in embassies. But we also have civil servant professionals who work to support us back in Washington. And the civil servant employees, they provide policy oversight for all of our overseas programs. They provide operational support for our programs, making sure that we have the funds that we need dispersed to the field. They serve as desk officers. If there's a crisis, we need to get in touch with the desk officer. They can link us up with Congress and, just to help us get more funding. They also collaborate with key stakeholders and other government agencies and the private and non-private sectors and other development agencies. So there's really kind of, the civil servants that work at home, GS employees, and the foreign service employees. And our preferred skill applicant set is for the foreign service. We like you to have a master's degree. You can have it in accounting or we have so many different avenues to join. We have administrators, we have contracting officers, controllers, program officers, economic growth officers, climate change, environment officers. So we just have a wide variety of different skill sets that we need. And most of our job opportunities are posted at USAIDjobs.gov. And that's where the agency has our vacancy announcement page when they are available. So I think I've covered pretty much most things, and I am still able to use my talent singing. Just recently, I got to sing for the Prime Minister and the Ambassador at USAID's 50th or 75th anniversary partnership between USAID and Pakistan. And so I really feel that you can have it all. You can do a lot of things, and you can bring a lot of talents, and even still use some of the talents that you're very passionate about working at our embassies overseas. So thank you very much, and back over to you, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Penelope. Well, all of our panelists today are definitely inspiring these students here. And we have a big group today. I'm very excited to see that. And so I think what I'd like to do is, we have a different, we have a different sets of groups here, right? We have fellowships, we have Peace Corps, we have, kind of traditional State Department and Foreign Service stuff. So our answers are going to kind of vary here, but I'd like to hear from our panelists a little bit more about, let's imagine that these students are all excited now to come out and get a job, or maybe the baby step to an internship with these groups. What are some concrete steps they can take right now that maybe they don't pertain to their major so much? I want to get to the major question, but let's start, kind of what are some things they can do now to improve their chances of catching a job or an internship with your organizations. We can start with, let's start from the top. Let's start with Mr. Hernández.
Well, that's an excellent question, Ryan. I think the most important thing for a student is to actually start getting more information, just like you're doing today. And our careers website provides all of the information that a student might be interested in. You can look at our student programs, and those will include our internships and fellowships. It will also provide information about our job opportunities. One of the other things that folks can do is I will share a link to what is called our talent network, and you can find that on our website. I will also have a link specifically for this event. And so if during our conversation you say, gosh, what Saúl is talking about sounds really interesting, you can actually provide your email address and express interest in different opportunities. And then as vacancy announcements come up, or we have more of these information sessions, we can share email updates with you that way. So it's just a very, very effective way for you all to connect with us going forward.
Oh, that is excellent. Thank you so much. I like how you emphasize first thing to do is get all the information you can. That's important. I think that theme will probably crop up with our other presenters as well. Ms. Valadez, can you let us know from your perspective what these students can do now to kind of prepare themselves if they'd like to, get in on the Peace Corps?
Yes, so doing the research, step one, and another step individuals can take while currently in school would be to either be involved on campus or off campus. That is, there's something really powerful when someone does apply, and a lot of the narratives we see are, I want to combine be of service with my major, apply it together, but to see it on a resume that you were of service to someone else does speak volumes. So if time allows and you have the privilege to volunteer, that would be a great first step. If you cannot volunteer, that is okay. I recognize some individuals have to work to finance their education. So within your job, try to take on leadership roles within your job. I was working at the dining hall myself when I was in college, and I used that time to become a student supervisor slowly but surely, to show that growth, that you understand what it means to have a little bit more responsibility, be responsible for others. That shows a lot on your resume, because a lot of what you will find in the interview portion of the Peace Corps, you'll have to speak about working in unstructured environments. What was it like being responsible? Leadership role that you held is what typically we'll look for. So I ask individuals to either volunteer if you have the time, or if you have a job, remain in good standing and try to see if you can work your way up. But those are great first steps for someone who would like to join the Peace Corps in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really good stuff to hear. And a lot of times it's hard to imagine what that interview question is going to be. But once you've been on about 10 of them, you're expecting to hear that question. Tell me about a time you showed leadership. Yes, very much. And that's great. I mean, there's so many ways you can get involved at GSU and in Atlanta. And so, yeah, and a lot of you are working, and I'm sure some of you have a great deal of responsibility already. So that's good to be thinking about that and how to highlight that. Yes, Mr. Tilley, what would you say?
Actually, I agree with Saul and Jackie about number one, doing your research. That is the critical thing that you need to do to know exactly where the course of your life is going to take you. I wish I had done my research before I initially joined the Foreign Service, because I think I would have actually chosen to go through the fellowships as opposed to paying for grad school myself, and then finally making my way into the Foreign Service. But now, knowing all of that, I'm here to tell you what not to do and how to do it a little bit better than what Mr. Tilley did. So I can share with you all, because someone asked about the websites and email addresses. I am going to share my screen for a second so you all can take a picture of all of these websites and email addresses. And from there, you'll be able to access where you might find, can everybody see all of them on the screen now? Okay, excellent. So so from there, you can find out when the applications open. Again, they're going to open for the Wrangell, Pickering, and the Payne fellowships around the end of July, early August. And for Pickering and Wrangell, they will end around September, the last week of September. And for Payne, their closing date is sometime around November, the first week of November. I didn't talk to you guys about the Foreign Agricultural Services Diversity Fellowship Program, but essentially it operates very similar to the other three. But for today, we're mainly focused on the State Department and USAID programs. So I'll hold that for a few seconds longer before I stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much. You know, it's interesting as Jackie kind of mentions the word service and, you know, foreign service, there's kind of forget that a lot of these jobs are, you know, in the public sector, there is a major service element to all of this. So I think that's also kind of a good mindset for our students to have as they consider whether they want to become, you know, bankers or foreign service officers or Peace Corps officers. So yeah, that's really great. Penelope, what would you say? I mean, not everybody can sing with Prince and get themselves into USAID, but what can they do? What can they do now as they think about how to get there?
Thank you for asking. Good question. I would say don't limit yourself to, which is why I shared my story about being a singer, because people say, how is it that you were singing with Luther Vandross and then you ended up working at an American embassy? And my parents involved me in everything, things that I didn't want to do. As a matter of fact, I was a French, I majored in French and Spanish in college, and I wanted to be an interpreter also for the United Nations. And so I'm talking with my father, who was a diplomat. He said, you know, some of his best advice to me was just make sure that you touch on a little bit of everything, touch on political science, major in French and Spanish, join the Peace Corps, go study abroad. That was a big one, I would say. My junior year, I studied in France, I studied in Spain, because sometimes just being overseas in a country, you know, you never know who you're gonna run into. Fortunately, at USAID, I see a question: how important is foreign language facilities for these positions? For USAID, kind of, and Saúl would probably jump in, and for the State Department, you must tenure in a language in order for you to become a permanent employee. And so what that means is, if you don't have a language, the great thing is they will send you to Spanish or French or Arabic, or you know, to make sure that you can get the language skills. So that should never be a deterrent, because some people aren't good in school. But I would say just diversifying your portfolio. Don't just get stuck in, I want to be a controller, I want to be only in finance, I only want to be in finance, because sometimes you can limit yourself. And you know, especially in you know, in college, in the younger years, sometimes you're coming in and you don't really know what you want to do. And so I think, you know, language is really not crucial to get the job. You can learn them after employment, as Sterling says. But I would say just don't paint yourself into a box, and don't let other people paint yourself into a box as well. And do research on the agency. Know what the mission is, because a lot of times during the interview, they are going to ask you that question: why do you want to work at USAID? Or why do you feel you would be a good fit? And you know, it would not necessarily be so wise to say, because I want to travel around the world for free. So I don't think we have anybody that would say that. But yeah, know the agency that you're applying for, and go to their website and study it. And you know, I'm a development diplomat in residence down here in Morehouse, and so you can always feel free to reach out. I cover Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, and Georgia. So I have quite a few states that I cover. And I have to say, in my 8 weeks that I've been here, I've only been in Atlanta for about 2.5 weeks. I just got back day before yesterday. So I've been doing a lot of traveling, trying to promote what USAID does. Over.
All right. Thank you so much. I forgot all my CV lingo here, but over, I do remember. I actually
Ryan,
yeah.
Can I make a statement to what Penelope said about not painting yourself in a box?
Sure.
So when I joined the Foreign Service with the State Department back in 2002, that was my intent was to actually be a public diplomacy officer. But because of my work experience before that, people would see my resume, they would see all of my experiences, and they would say, well, Sterling, we don't want you to do that. We'd rather you do this, which ultimately led me to doing way more political military assignments than actually doing public diplomacy assignments. So when Penelope says, be prepared for what is gifted to you, you should take it, because someone may see something in you that's very different than how you see yourself. And because of that background, it didn't really bother me that I was asked to do more political military related things than public diplomacy. But for some people, it could bother them. But I would suggest that when you're open yourself to the possibilities of what could be while you're serving in whether it's USAID, whether it's the Peace Corps or the State Department. to explore those things earlier on in your career, because, you know, anything can happen. You never know where your life is going to, where it's going to take you.
Oh, thank you so much for that. That makes a lot of sense. And kind of going to this point, but also maybe to bringing it back to language just a bit, I'd like to ask Saúl and Jackie, you know, I feel like learning a lot of our students will have a language already, and how can they leverage that already? Is that I mean, your response that language isn't crucial, but I guess I would ask, is it a positive, and how can, and, you know, speaking, you know, with respect to what you just said, you know, just having it on your resume, right? Like, you never know what someone's going to see in you. So I guess I'd like to hear from Jackie and then Saúl, like how they see language and how students might, you know, how they talk about that, how they leverage that as they apply. Go ahead, Jackie.
Certainly. So having a foreign language is not a requirement to join the Peace Corps as a whole, because in the Peace Corps, we have the privilege of time. Because the role is for 27 months long, we will have 3 months dedicated to only training. And that includes a large portion of it will be language training. So if you don't know Arabic, that is okay. The Peace Corps will teach you Arabic. They'll teach you Thai. Any language you need, the Peace Corps will teach you. Now, with that said, if a person wants to serve in Latin America, or a Latin America with a Spanish-speaking country, or in a French-speaking country, we will ask for the person to either have taken 2 semesters at a college level or be a native or heritage speaker. It's not necessary to know, right, all the conjugations of all the verbs. We will not test you in your interview. Instead, we will ask for a copy in your transcript to see that you are being honest and that you did take it. Now, how to leverage language. If a person is really, really motivated to want to continue learning the language, that could be a really strong case in their interview. So if someone is learning Arabic and they really want to serve in Morocco, maybe that makes for an even more compelling story on their application, because on the application, everyone will have to write a short essay on why they want to join. And sometimes people will rely on language, where I really want to go here because I have studied French and I want to continue to speak French in the future. So I encourage people to honor the languages they already know. If they come from a multilingual household, they're bilingual already, and if you want to continue learning, then great. If you don't necessarily know another language, that's okay. Be open to learning, because the Peace Corps will teach you. And if you have a real clear goal on what you want to learn, try to leverage that if you can, right? Duolingo if possible, and then you can share it in your interview potentially, or in your essay. But we value language. It's okay if you haven't taken the language, we will train you.
Thank you so much. Saúl, what would you add to that?
Yes. So, yeah, what I would add is for a career in the Department of State's Foreign Service, not speaking a foreign language should not be a barrier to application. As everyone here has said, you do not have to speak a foreign language. The U.S. government can teach you a foreign language. That said, if you want to become a foreign service officer like me, you go through the selection process, you get your security clearance and your medical clearance, and we should have a conversation about security clearance, because that's important for students to know about in terms of the behaviors that you should avoid to prevent any problems with getting a security clearance. But after you have gone through the selection process, you will have a score that places you on the candidate register for the foreign service, for example. And then at that point, if you do speak a foreign language and you would like to do a quick phone test, you can do this quick phone test and you can add to your score that might move you up on the candidate register. If you speak what the Department of State considers an easy language like Spanish, French, or German, you might get about 0.1 added to your overall score that might move you up a little bit on the candidate register. If you speak a language that we consider hard, like Arabic or Russian or Mandarin, you get additional points. If you're a veteran, for example, you also get additional points to your candidacy in the Foreign Service and in the Civil Service. But as Penelope and Jackie pointed out, we have ways for people to acquire new languages. So I spoke Spanish. I did the phone test when I was going through my candidacy. Once you're in the system, we have a wonderful educational institution in Arlington, Virginia called the Foreign Service Institute that provides both language training and professional training. And the language training test that you take after you've been in class is actually pretty grueling. It's about 90 minutes worth of actually checking your ability to both read and speak the language. But of course, you are taking the test after you've had the opportunity to either take the language course or say I'm ready and I'm going to dive in and see how well I speak the language. But of course, if, as Jackie said, if you want to take language classes in university, if you want to do Duolingo, if you want to do study abroad, and by the way, we offer Department of State scholarships for you to study certain languages that we consider critical languages. So there are opportunities if you have the language and would like to expand on it in one of these 14 languages, or in some cases, even if you don't speak the language and would like to acquire it, there are ways for you to get those opportunities while you're still in school.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I actually promised that we would ask the degree question, and even in the chat, I was sort of already amazed at the diversity of degrees that could be possibly amenable to positions like this. So I guess I'd like to hear, from your experience, what kinds of degrees have you encountered among your colleagues or even yourselves? We heard that Penelope was a Spanish and French major, but is it kind of all over the place, or are they kind of cluster in certain areas? So I just kind of like to hear that and see what folks have to say. I'm going to go in a random order here. Let's start with you, Sterling, and then we'll go next to Penelope.
So Ryan, you were breaking up for a second. Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Very sorry. Yes, we're just kind of interested in the range of undergraduate, and maybe even can you speak to graduate school majors as well? I mean, of course, your fellowships probably are slightly different in that respect, but
right.
Maybe undergraduate majors that are good fits or clusters of them. Is it I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay. So sure. So the as it relates to undergraduate, generally speaking, undergraduate degrees don't really matter as long as you have an interest in international affairs and you have some background that may help you in terms of the career path that you're choosing. But when it comes to graduate programs like what is offered under the fellowships, we are very specific about what we're looking for, because there are certain degree areas that the Department of State and USAID are actually looking for these fellowships to further fill in the gaps that both services are having right at this particular moment. So what I mean by that is for the State Department, they may be looking for a master's in public administration, of public policy, international affairs, security studies, and things of that nature, possibly even an MBA if you want to be an economics officer. Because let me backtrack. So with State Department has 5 conal areas where a officer can choose to go to focus his or her career path on. And that is the management cone, consular cone, political cone, economics cone, and the public diplomacy cone. So the public diplomacy cone is more or less where you will find your public affairs officers or your cultural affairs officers. Political, obviously, it's, you're doing the political stuff. You're engaging with the ministries that are responsible for the overall political process of the country that you're in. Then economics speaks for itself. you're right there. You're dealing with the economies of that particular country and as well as the interest of the business, the U.S.-based business industries that are operating within that country. Then you have management. These are the people that basically run the embassy. They are the keepers of, making sure that everyone has housing, everyone has the appropriate documents for being a diplomat in said country. Then you have the consular officers. That's the folks that deal with visas, whether it be immigrant visas or non-immigrant visas. And then who did I miss? Did I miss anybody, Saul?
Did you cover political econ? I think you did.
Oh yeah, yes, I did. I did cover political and econ. So political and econ, they tend to be people who have studied either poli-sci in undergrad or sociology or something like that to become a generalist officer that's focused in that area. But when it comes to USAID, those degree programs are much more focused because these are experts in their given area. So even if you are an econ officer for USAID, you're going to have a specialty that revolves around something under the economics umbrella that is focused in on that particular country. So you're going to want to have at the very least, an MBA and an undergrad economics degree to actually work for USAID under those conditions. Then also USAID has people who are in health. You're going to have a health background. You're going to have to, a significant health background, because sometimes you'll end up in some parts of Africa and you'll actually have to end up managing a program that's focused on a particular health problem set in that particular country. So so the degrees on the graduate level matter a lot. The degrees on the undergraduate level, not so much.
Thanks very much. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Penelope. If you do, great. If not, you can also kind of answer this this question that's popping up in the chat a little bit about study abroad, and maybe that might be something that maybe matters more than degree in some ways. I don't know. Go ahead.
So everything Sterling said was correct. We have so many different, we call them backstops, where the State Department calls them cones. But for example, I'll just touch a little bit. We have democracy officers. We have health officers who, for the past 3 years, they were managing the COVID response in different countries that we worked in, from making sure we had enough syringes to setting up mobile clinics, just busy with everything, managing the flights in and out. We have program officers that are responsible overall for making sure that we notify Congress of how much we're spending. They help prepare the budget. They help us tell our story. They have development outreach communication specialists who also travel sometimes with our head of mission, who's called the mission director, to go out and do photo ops. The State Department calls it a management officer, but we call them supervisory executive officers, but it handles everything from management, from making sure that you have a house to live in, working with State Department to make sure you get picked up from the airport, that you get your shipment, that your car gets there. Then we have controllers who finance all of the things that are associated with not only our program, but all of our administrative needs, from training. I personally manage training, travel, procurement, the mail room for USAID, security. So there's such a wide variety, which is why, you know, again, I go back to don't just put yourself in a box, because, you know, there's so many degrees can translate into different things. In terms of our studies abroad program, USAID per se doesn't really sort of send you to study abroad like they do in college, but what we do offer is paid opportunities for students and graduates that include internships for current students and recent graduate programs. And Diane was kind enough to put in the chat, sort of if you scan some of those QR codes, it gives you information directly about, you know, what that was, just in the interest of time to not go through all of that. But we also have something that's called Pathway Internships, and that provides paid opportunities for current students and individuals accepted for enrolling in qualifying educational programs. We have pathways for recent graduate programs, which this program is for individuals who have graduated within 2 years with a degree certificate completion, or 6 years for veterans with military service obligations. So again, I encourage you to just go to the QR codes because it gives you a little bit more information. And then again, you can always go to, you know, if you want some information about USAID in particular, I'll put something in the chat here so you can see what it talks about, some other opportunities available to you. Over.
Yeah, thanks so much. And Jackie, I think, you know, we've talked before a little bit about majors and so forth. We've also talked, and I'd love for you to, you know, tell me a bit about what you see as maybe majors or that translate well into Peace Corps. Also interested, in the past we've had, and I know we're kind of getting toward the end, so I wanted to get this buzzword in. We've talked about global competence, and we have a global studies major here that a lot of our students may be in, and I think that's definitely one of the goals, you know, to prepare students to become globally competent. And some of the things that Penelope was describing about, you know, just organizing things on the ground in a place, it does maybe take a little bit more than just language, right? So anyway, Jackie, kind of let us know a bit about majors and so forth, but also talk about what global competence might mean in the Peace Corps.
Certainly. So as for majors, kind of what we see just runs everywhere. We accept all majors. Our Peace Corps volunteer roles, they will range in all aspects: environment, education, youth development, business. So we see all respective majors in the Peace Corps, and that does translate to some of my colleagues. I myself was a linguistics and Romance language major. My colleagues are English, anthropology, some did science, STEM. So we are everywhere. So your major will happily be accepted by the Peace Corps. As for global competence, what that looks like, so I'll give it from two lenses. Pre, as you're applying, global competence can range of maybe that person studied abroad. What was that study abroad program like, right? Were you living with a host family? Did you have a service component that was integrated into your programming? That is a really great standout piece. I myself participated in a study abroad program that did emphasize, service in the country where I was. So that is a great kind of preview of, am I cut out for this? But it can also take on a different way. If the person is unable to study abroad, is the person taking kind of global competence type classes? So intercultural classes like maybe Latin American studies, Asian studies. Are you getting an understanding of how you might be different from someone else, but despite that, you're still willing to study, open to learning? That's what it could look like pre, as you're applying in the Peace Corps. There is a really intentional method set in ensuring individuals, if they have not been exposed to a different culture, because of where they may live in the US, because we are recruiting all over the US, Peace Corps is really intentional about, okay, we're going to start off slow. Everyone's living with a host family, but every day we'll have training. So you build up what is the history in this country, how one should ideally interact, what your role will be, what are the, if you are an educator in the US, what does it mean to be an educator in Thailand, and understanding those subtleties. So Peace Corps will definitely drill into one and take those 3 months to the max in ensuring the person understands what those differences are. But ideally, we're looking for that in your application. We're going to ask you to tell us about a time you worked or interacted with someone who is from a different culture than the one you have. So that will certainly be also an interview question. And we expect the person to either talk about their community upbringing, or if they studied abroad, or if they took a class and their whole kind of perception may have changed because of something they learned. That is what we're digging at also in your interview, to ensure that this person is well aware of what could be coming, and they've taken the time to intentionally think about the Peace Corps.
Thank you so much. That's really great. There's a neat question in the chat. I would like to hear Saúl's perspective. Miley asks, how can students prepare for careers in fields less connected to specific majors? For example, she's a global studies major, but she might be interested in working, let's say, at the State Department, USAID, in the field of environmental sustainability. So how can she, square that circle a bit? Thank you, Saúl.
Absolutely. Well, of course, one of the great opportunities of being a student is that you have the chance right now to potentially sign up for a course where you can learn more about these skills. Since you are in Atlanta as well, there are many NGOs that are here that are dealing with environmental sustainability issues right here. So don't overlook the fact that there might be opportunities within your own backyard for you to connect with organizations and with people who are passionate about environmental sustainability in our community here right now. And then, of course, if you are interested in doing this in foreign affairs, we, of course, will have the opportunity through our paid internship program for people to express interest in different areas. And for example, we have an entire bureau within the Department of State that's dedicated to oceans and environmental science. But also, of course, all of our embassies and our regional bureaus, of course, are very focused on climate change and sustainability. So there are opportunities, if you get the opportunity to intern with us, to say that you're interested in those that type of work. We also offer what's called the Virtual Student Federal Service Internship, which you can also find on our careers.state.gov website. Though this is an unpaid internship and the rest of our internships are paid, this is a full-year academic internship, not only with the Department of State, but across the federal government. So actually Peace Corps, USAID, and other federal agencies have traditionally participated in this. And you can add a part-time internship while you're continuing your studies and express interest and potentially get selected for a project in this particular area.
Oh, thank you. That is amazing. That's great. In fact, and I see Sterling's got his hand up. I do want to just point out that you said, if I can get you on record, that you do have mostly paid internships and some that are not, which I guess you could do from the comfort of your home. So, okay, that's great. And I don't know if Sterling wants to piggyback on that or say something else completely different, but go ahead, Sterling.
Slightly completely different. Depending on what year Miley is in, is Miley a junior or senior this year? Miley, can you answer that question? Or maybe not? Okay, so if Miley is a junior or a senior, she might want to consider applying for the Donald M. Payne Fellowship because of the area in which Miley is focused in on. That's like the expert. That's the person who's going to be involved in environmental sustainability on, every day of their career, basically. And so it's best to go to an organization that has experts that work in those areas. If you come to the State Department, you're going to deal with only the policy as it relates to environmental sustainability. But if you want to work in, actually producing results in foreign countries, you're going to want to work for USAID and become an expert in that topical area. So if you become a Payne Fellow, Miley, that would lead you into a career with USAID as a environmental sustainability expert in X country. So I encourage you to consider looking at that possibility of going to grad school and focusing in on a degree area that fits in line with that career path. And then, USAID will be more than happy to have someone like you.
Thanks so much. We have time for one more question. I'd like to hear Penelope and Jackie quickly. Can you tell us a little bit about the diversity, equity, and inclusion? What emphasis your organizations put on that, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Penelope.
Thank you. So I'm glad that you asked that question. I've actually been hired as the, I think, 4th development diplomat in residence, which is a new program. Unlike State Department, I think they have 16, we have 2, one in the South and one in the West. And our primary, and we're trying to expand the DDIR program, Development Diplomat in Residence program, because we do realize that diversity, equity, inclusion are so important in everything that we do. We're pushing it out to missions. We have a chief diversity officer. We have a newsletter, but I was specifically hired to work with HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, minority serving institutions, tribal colleges and universities. And we just had a conference in Hawaii for the Pacific Islanders. It was a Pacific Islanders conference. And so we do realize that there is a lack of diversity. I'd say for maybe about 10 years, I was the only African-American female FS1, GS15 equivalent, a woman who did what I did in the agency. And, I was very vocal about that because there are no senior foreign service officers who are female who did what I did as an admin person. So USAID has taken it seriously. We have a 5-year DEIA strategy. It's really embedded in everything that we do. And now they're kind of trying to talk about making it something that is part of our promotion precepts. So that's what USAID is. Lots of initiatives going on to promote DEIA, both abroad and here at home. And this position here in Atlanta is really a first step to really making sure that we can focus on that.
Excellent stuff. Great to hear that. Jackie, what would you say?
So for ICDIA, the Peace Corps has been super committed to it. In fact, that's why I'm also here. I was hired to be a diversity recruiter. I myself am from the state of Georgia and wanted to bring a more accurate reflection of our population to the Peace Corps. So the Peace Corps does have a lot of intentional programming as you're preparing to go as a recruiter. It's my job to help you set expectations of what if you're the only one with your identity? How can you do that? How can you survive what those 2 years could be like and what those channels of support are? Once you're in service, there's a lot of training that will be incorporated in those 3 months, but there's also a really strong Peace Corps volunteer community because Peace Corps will be hard in many ways. And it's something I didn't know until I was there, that there was, for example, in my case, I was in Panama. There was this really strong WhatsApp group of the Worldwide Peace Corps Latino volunteer group, and we would send each other like questions. Oh, I'm the only one, right? Someone would share, I'm the only one in this country. What tips do you have for navigating this situation? So we really relied on each other. And I know the other groups also had their own worldwide network WhatsApp groups. So We're really committed, but the volunteers are also really creative and find other ways to show the support to you. But happy to share more with someone if you want to talk more one-on-one. I'll drop my email in the chat.
Thank you so much, Saúl, Jackie, Sterling, Penelope, for sharing your time with us today, telling us all about the wonderful opportunities in your organizations. We appreciate all the valuable tips and advice you've given our students and recent grads. So thank you so much for participating in this GSU Global Careers series. We want to thank everybody who joined the call today. We hope you really enjoyed it. Tomorrow we'll be here at 1 p.m. for Careers for Bilinguals in Metro Atlanta. We'll be joined with a representative from the Latin American Association, the GSU College of Ed, the Spanglish Multilingual Agency, and Medical Interpreter Network of Georgia. Many of the Global Career Series organizations will be recruiting students at the in-person Atlanta Global Studies Symposium on Friday, April 14th. I'll be there too. Come shake hands with representatives at the GSU College of Law between 9 a.m. and 10:45 a.m. To learn more, go to the link that Diana's posting in the chat. And all Global Career Series sessions will be available on our YouTube as well, which is going to be linked to the chat. And finally, I'd like to thank the Atlanta Global Studies Center, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, University Career Services, the Global Studies Program, and GSU Study Abroad programs for organizing this service. Have a fantastic afternoon, everybody, and hope to see you back here tomorrow.